Hello everyone, my name is Thierry Bechtel, and today I'm going to explain everything about the AstroDIM function. Many questions arise and we'll try to answer them as clearly as possible. What it is, and then how it works. So first of all, what exactly is this AstroDIM? Well, it's the commercial name we've given to a function integrated into our drivers, generally for street lighting, which automatically and autonomously reduces the lighting level and therefore energy consumption during the night. You can program up to 5 different lighting levels during the night. Okay, but why do that? Well, for several reasons. The first point is that very often it's not really necessary to have as much light at 2 AM as at 9 PM. So it's better to dim it. The second reason is the famous energy savings we're all trying to achieve. Because yes, if we dim the lights, we also reduce consumption. It's important to know that the energy consumption of an LED light fixture is almost directly proportional to its brightness level. To put it simply, if you reduce the dimming level by 50%, for example, you will almost halve the light's energy consumption. So imagine if you reduce it to 10% brightness. That's nearly 90% savings. This means that, potentially, you can save more money by leaving the lights on rather than turning them off. For example, if your lights are set to turn on from 7:30 PM to 6 AM, and you decide to turn them off between midnight and 4 AM, you save 38%. But if you reduce the brightness during the night, you can start lowering it earlier and raising it later in the morning. So for example, you can save 56% on energy instead of 38%. This shows that leaving it on can be more advantageous than turning it off. The third reason why it's better to use the AstroDIM function rather than turning the lights off is, of course, safety, and especially the feeling of insecurity. Tell us honestly, if the street is dark, do you feel safe there? So yes, it's a bit of an exaggeration, but feeling of insecurity can be real. One last point. Most LED lights already have this function built in, at no extra cost. You simply need to program and activate it. Okay, now that we've covered that, how does it work? First, it's important to know that even though many manufacturers include such a function, it's not standardized at all from an electronic point of view. This means you have to be careful when mixing different brands of LED drivers. Furthermore, it's important to know that LED drivers don't have a built-in clock. Therefore, the drivers can't know in real time whether it's 10 PM, 10:30 or 11:15 PM, or even what day it is. So, how does it work? Basically, the LEDs are switched on in the evening and switched off in the morning. The driver then counts how long they've been on. It all starts there. The driver defines what's called the midnight point, or virtual midnight. It's simply the middle of its on time. When you program the driver, what you're actually defining is how long before and after this point the lighting level should change. Let's take an example. Our lights are on from 8 PM to 6 AM. They will therefore be on for 10 hours. The middle of the night will then be after 5 hours, so at 1 AM. The driver will take this into account. If you want it to lower at 10 PM, for example, we'll actually program it to lower 3 hours before the midpoint, 3 hours before 1 AM. Okay, so the driver knows it should dim 3 hours before midnight. It knows that this midpoint occurs 5 hours after it's switched on. So next night, when we turn it on, it will think, in 2 hours I need to lower the level. And that's what it will do. The driver will always calculate around the middle of the night. So yes, this raises an obvious question. Summer and winter nights are not the same. So how do we manage? Well, here again, we've thought of everything. In fact, the driver doesn't just count the duration of a single night's operation, but it continuously counts the duration of the last 8 nights. And it calibrates itself based on that. As soon as it's on for more than 2 hours, and less than 24 hours, of course, it considers it a night, and it adjusts the calculation of its virtual midnight, the midpoint. Finally, we need to consider one last very important point. If we imagine that the lights turn on at sunset and off at sunrise, then the length of the night changes throughout the year. But in fact, the night also shifts. Let's take the city of Paris as an example. In 2025, at the summer solstice, the sun sets at 9:57 p.m. and rises at 5:47 a.m. The night therefore lasts 7 hours and 50 minutes. The midpoint will therefore be at 7:50 divided by 2 plus 9:57 p.m. That means 1:52 a.m. At the winter solstice, the sun sets at 4:56 p.m. and rises at 8:41 a.m. The night therefore lasts 15 hours and 45 minutes. The midpoint will then be at 15:45 divided by 2 plus 4:56 p.m., which means 12:48 a.m. Therefore, in Paris, there is more than 1 hour difference when considering the midpoint between sunset and sunrise, between the summer and winter solstices. The times at which the driver will lower or raise the lighting will shift in the same way. Result: it is impossible to define a fixed time for the change in lighting level that will be applied year-round. It is important to take this difference into account throughout the year and to define the programming accordingly. And of course, to inform users or officials about this difference. By the way, of course, the speed at which the lighting changes from one level to another can be adjusted for a smooth transition. By default, it takes 3 minutes for the visual comfort of passers-by. There you have it. Now you know how AstroDIM works. So do not hesitate any longer. Remember to program your LED drivers and activate this function. It has nothing but advantages. If you have any question, please don't hesitate to contact us. Thank you for your attention and see you soon.